Welcome to the Constellation-class frigate project update. The Government Accountability Office reports to Congress, and they just came out with a new report talking about why this project is so far behind schedule. What I'm going to do here is go over that report with you and give you a whole timeline of the FFGX project, now known as the Constellation-class, and why its first delivery date has been pushed back to 2029. So the Navy does intend still on buying 20 of these frigates. The first batch is going to be built by Finnicatieri up in Wisconsin. They intend on that batch to be 10 frigates. And it's going to cost a little over $10 billion. So this project really comes out of concerns for the littoral combat ships, inefficiencies in survivability, habitability, and lethality. Those three things are substandard in our LCS ships by our Navy standards. Nothing was really done in the Navy by decision makers until 2014, when Secretary of Defense over all the militaries, Chuck Hagel, instructs the Navy to formally evaluate alternatives to the littoral combat ships. That's the Independence and the Freedom classes. So the Navy thinks about this for 4 years. They come up with standards and measures, and in 2018, the U.S. Navy asks 5 shipbuilding industry teams to provide a mature concept for the FFGX program. Those 5 teams are listed here: Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Bath Iron Works, Austal USA, Huntington Ingalls, and Finnicatieri. These are all experienced shipbuilders here in the United States. They have 16 months to come up with their concept. The Navy pays each of them $15 million. Now, one of the problems that I saw with this method of going towards a concept design is it's great that they leveraged 5 different industries, and they are competing with each other. This is a competitive contract, but because they're getting $15 million up front, they can spend less than that to design a ship and pocket the rest with no intention of ever winning the contract. In fact, Austal posted on their website that was public, but they're really talking to their shareholders, celebrating winning a $15 million contract for this concept design. And what they drew was this. It's simply a larger version of the Independence-class LCS that they were already building. This conflicts with the Secretary of Defense's intention to get away from this design and redesign a new ship that doesn't suffer from the limitations of this ship. This is essentially a large Independence class, is really all it is. In April 2020, after 2 years or 16 months of concept review, milestone B of development begins. So the award goes to design and construct this ship in the Finnicatieri Marionette Marine facility in Wisconsin. This decision is made by the acting Secretary of the Navy of the time, Thomas B. Modly. He makes this decision. At this time, my opinion is, and this is where we need to deviate from the Government Accountability official report, this is my opinion right now, is that he was not in a good position mentally to make this decision because he was under investigation and had come under extreme pressure to resign because he had just, within the past year, fired a commanding officer of an aircraft carrier who had written an email to people above his head in the chain of command for asking for help because there was a virus running rampant through his aircraft carrier. His entire crew was getting so sick they weren't able to function, and he needed help on his aircraft carrier to manage that situation. Because he wrote that email over and above the Secretary of Defense or Secretary of Navy's head, the Secretary of Navy fired him for asking for help. Obviously, this was not looked upon favorably. He's only an acting secretary at this point. He's not even confirmed. He does resign his post after that happens. But one of the last decisions he makes in the same month that he resigns is to award this contract to Finnicatieri. And that's how they won this design here. This is what Finnicatieri says they're going to build. In 2020, Congress authorizes 6 frigates to be funded at 2 per year from 2020 to 2024, with a request of 4 additional from 2025 to 2027. Because of the way the budgeting works, they have to wait till they get to that closer to that 2025 deadline and then fund the 4 additional ships. And that's why they're waiting on that. So the systems that Finnegan say that they're going to use on the sign are tested and are installed on other ships, like the Arleigh-Burke, for example. The Mark 41 VLS is on many ships. The SLQ-32, which is the electronic countermeasures, already in use on our aircraft carriers and the Arleigh-Burke class and others. The Spy 6 version 3, which is the smaller frigate version of the Spy radar, will be installed. Spy radars have been around since the Ticonderoga in many different variants, all tested and proven. The Aegis weapon system baseline 10F is going to be on the frigate, which is the frigate version of baseline 10. That is a very good system that I argue is the best in the world for controlling sensors and weapons. They have the best sonar suite we have in the Navy. That's on most of our ships. But the real problem comes in here at the bottom. Look at these two at the bottom. The combined diesel, electric, and gas turbine, the COD lag propulsion system, has never been used on board a Navy ship before. And I want you to remember this. This is a brand new engine room the Navy has never used on any of their ships. Combined diesel, electric, and gas turbine. Also, the machinery centralized control system that's going to control this new system is brand new as well. They've never been tested at sea. So those are new systems. So here's just a big picture of what's going on. We're going to build 10 frigates right now. It's going to cost $10.8 billion, and it's going to take about a decade to build all of them. So this is the budget at this point. So the problems begin in 2020. Ironically, right after they get awarded the contract, what begins to go wrong? Well, now we're getting into the functional design of the program, and this is where the shipyard wanted to use the FREM ship design that they're already building in the Finnegan shipyards in Italy. So they have a lot of experience with this, but the Navy has these new systems, like this new propulsion system that they want to install. So this immediately changes the FREM design to the Constellation design. And we begin losing all the benefits of using an already existing design by redesigning the bow. Below the waterline, the bow is being extended 23 feet. It has 500 more tons of displacement because the generators are so big. They're completely redesigning the bow by removing the sonar dome that's up there on the FREM. The Constellation-class will not have a sonar dome. So the hull itself is completely different. It's a different weight, it's a different length, it's a different shape. So all the calculations they have for the FREM class cannot be used. You have to calculate that all again after you get the 3D model finished. So we're throwing away the benefits of using the FREM design by redesigning a new ship. And the superstructure, as you can see here, the blue silhouette is the FREM. The ship in color is the new Constellation class. And they've completely changed the superstructure to meet the needs of the Navy's systems, like the SLQ ECM system, the Mark 41, all those sensors and weapons that are going to be topside and then the superstructure require redesign. At this point, it's a whole new ship. Awarding the shipyard that was going to use a FREM design for efficiency has been lost. And the Navy did that. The shipyard didn't do it. The Navy did that by giving these new requirements. So now we need new hydrodynamic requirements. We need to have new engineering spaces need to be built inside the ship now. You can't use the old ones. And the superstructure above the waterline is completely different. Congress, when they found out about this in 2022, expressed extreme concerns. They're like, well, they obviously knew that by not using the FREM design, at least the hull, it was going to require a lot of rework, a lot of new work, I should say, to be more accurate. So if you would, open your National Defense Authorization Act of 2021, or this 2023 rather, to the book of Constellation-class Guided Missile Frigate Program Review. I will be reading from page 18 here on your screen, verse 1. The Navy doth ask for $1.3 billion to build the first ship before having a solid understanding of its design and cost. Therefore, the comptroller shall review the implication of the FFG 62 design changes from the parent ship's design on the Navy plans of mature design. Despite these concerns and reviews, what did the Navy do? We got a ship to build, boys. That's right. August 2022, the same year that was written by Congress, the Navy says, hey, the schedule says begin building in 2022. Well, we're going to start building a ship in 2022, despite not having a complete functional design or a 3D model. They don't have technical documents to build the ship, but they're going to start cutting steel anyway, because that's what the schedule says. Got to stick to the schedule. So 2022 to 2023 is a very important period in the Constellation class. Just 4 months into construction, in November of 2022, the Navy concludes that there's no way they're going to reach their 2026 delivery date. It needs to be pushed back. And here's what it looks like as of October 2023. This is a year after that happened. None of the blocks, also called grand modules by the shipyard, Navy calls each one of these blocks, shipyard calls them grand modules, none of them are 100% complete. So a real problem is with methods. This is really getting nerdy at this point, but if you're this far into the video, I imagine you are a Navy technology and ship design nerd like I am. And so how the Navy measures the percentage of the block in the image above my head here is complete is misleading. Really is what it is. So here's how it works. Let's start at the top there. The shipyard drafts design documents for every system on the ship. And that's everything that's going to be installed inside and even on top in the superstructure of the ship. That's from radar systems and all of its components down to the toilets and the galley equipment and all the piping and everything that connects that stuff together is a design document. The Constellation class has 511 design documents. Whenever you put all the design documents in a list, that's called the Contract Data Requirements List, or the CDRL. The CDRL is the list of things you need to do to build your ship, is one way of looking at it. When each design document is submitted to the Navy, it is marked on their flow chart for their project management as being 50% complete. So all the shipyard has to do is develop the design document, which does take time and a lot of work. But when they develop the design document for the first time and submit it to the Navy says, hey, we're halfway home. We're halfway to a complete ship, which is ridiculous. If anything, you're maybe 15 to 20% if you round up a little bit. But so the percentages here are not measuring anything substantial towards completing the ship is the problem. Let's move on to the next flowchart. Once that 50% document is generated and it is emailed or sent to the Navy, and the Navy opens their email and reviews the document, then it is magically 75% complete. We're 75% to having the ship done at this point because we opened our email when we got to work that morning. You can see where these percentages are really misleading. Obviously, the review process is a lot more technical than reading an email, but it is certainly not completing your ship to a 75% completion rate, because there is inevitably, almost in every technical document that I've ever seen, and I've been in the shipyard multiple times during my career, there's going to be revisions and changes and updates made to the original technical document. And this revision process can go back and forth over and over again until they get it right. There is no timeout. There's no, hey, we ran out of time, build the ship. No, you keep doing this process where you resubmit and re-review these technical documents until the Navy's happy with it. Whenever that's the state, that is called 90% complete. Even though they're continuously reviewing and updating and changing these technical documents over and over again, it sits at a 90% complete status, which is why you have the blue modules up there. That's their state. Everything else that is in beige is at that 50 to 75% module. And then once a technical document is completely approved, of course, it is 100%. And I don't see any of those modules up there as being 100%. So the state of the technical documents, or the CDRL, in February of 2024 is they have 168 items of the 511 complete. That leaves about 340 pending items that are still in this cycle of resubmission and review and going back and forth, but appearing as if they're somewhere between 50 and 90% complete, when the reality is there is no functional design or 3D model even now. So August 2022, Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro reports and certifies to congressional defense committees, because there's one for the House and one for the Senate, that the ship's basic and functional design were complete before approving construction on the program's first ship, as required. But as you can see, that is not the case even in accordance with the shipyards. The August 2022, when construction starts, the functionality design was 88% complete, and the 3D model, which comes after that, was 69% complete. So you have an incomplete ship at this point. A year later, in August 2023, so now we've gone 12 calendar months forward, that functional design has gone from 88% to 92%. They made a progress of 4% over the course of one calendar year towards a functional design. The 3D model is sitting at 84%. And as of December of 2023, the Navy stopped publishing numbers. We don't know where it sits now because the Navy won't tell us, but I bet you it's not 100%, no matter what they say to Congress. And it gets worse. This is the land-based engineering site for the Arleigh Burke class destroyer. And I'm going to say that again because some people kind of half paying attention might have missed it. This is for a different ship. This is the land-based engineering site for the Arleigh Burke destroyer program. This site allows changes and improvements to be tested before they're installed on ships in the fleet. And this is a very effective strategy ensuring that changes will not have unexpected consequences once they're out in the real world. You don't want to accidentally limit your fleet in operation because of an unforeseen bug or result of a successful patch to your control program. The Littoral Combat Ship program, both Independence and Freedom class, did not have a land-based engineering site. So one of the big lessons learned from the LCS program was to require a land-based engineering site for new classes of ship using new technologies that are not tested in labs like this. So it's so important to Congress that they wrote that into public law in 2021. And here it is. I found it for you. Open your National Defense Authorization Act, because I know you keep them laying around like I do, 2021, from Section 125, verse alpha, concerning the land-based testing program for the FFGX Frigate program, test program for engineering plant required, period. You got to build it, Navy. You can't not do it. It's law. It's not a recommendation. It's not a GAO report result. This is public law since 2021. Continuing from the law, prior to the delivery date of the lead ship of the FFGX frigate class of vessels, the Secretary of the Navy thou shall do this, commence a land-based testing program for the engineering plant of such class of vessels. This land-based testing program, evaluate engineering site, has been required by law since 2021. What do you think the Navy does? So the Navy has a test and evaluation master plan. This is called a TEMP. So the master plan for testing is approved in 2020 when the contract is awarded to Finnicateri. And this approved TEMP will use data from systems that have already been tested on land-based facilities. For instance, the Mark 41 VLS that's going on the Constellation-class has been used for years on other ships and has been tested from land-based sites. So the Navy can say, we're pretty confident the Mark 41 VLS is going to work just fine. And they're probably right. I bet you it will. It will require a software upgrade or change to make it work with the Aegis Baseline 10F. But once that software change is updated and done, it should work just fine. The Navy's absolutely correct about that. But this plan that they have in their TEMP, their testing and evaluation master plan, does not include testing the new propulsion system that's never been built before. It hasn't been tested in any land-based engineering site because it's never been done before by the United States. So we have a new hull with new mechanical and electrical systems on a brand new ship with a new propulsion system that's not going to be tested before they build the first one. And when this report came out, the Navy told or responded to this report formally in writing, saying that it would update its testing plan by the end of 2024. And in the same response, the same paragraph, the very next sentence, the Navy says, but, then quote, the Navy is not intending on updating its formal testing plan. The Navy contradicts itself in the same paragraph, responding to the recommendation by the GAO to build a land-based engineering site that Congress required by law years ago. The Navy says not going to do it. Another recommendation that came out of this report was that this flow chart is useless because it doesn't measure any work being complete. It goes from 0 to 100%, and the measurements in between 0 and 100% mean nothing. The Navy did concur with this and said that they'll make changes. So good for the Navy for taking this information on board, where they should have had a better flow chart, a better project manager from the beginning. And this one's pretty obvious. Whenever you go before congressional committees to report that a functional design is complete and construction is going to commence, make sure you're correct when you say that. Build the land-based engineering site because it's required by law. That's the next thing they need to do. And here is the formal response I told you about. And I'm going to, you can read along with me if you like here. The Navy will leverage early opportunities for additional risk reduction efforts during the program's test program as land-based engineering site facilities become available for use. I assume that they're referring to the Arleigh Burke LBES because that is the one that's in use right now. I have no idea, neither does the Navy, to be frank with you, when it might become available for, I don't know, a day, a weekend, during the holidays when everyone's on stand down for any kind of use for the Constellation-class. And even if you could use it, it wouldn't make any sense because the propulsion plant for the Arleigh Burke is not the same as the Constellation. And the centralized machinery control system is completely different as well. That's a brand new system, has never been used on board any American ship. So you have a new power plant with a new control system and software that connects them that is completely untested, and the Navy refuses to build a land-based engineering site to do that. They're going to leverage opportunities to test when the LBES is available. So the Navy is not intending on updating its formal test and evaluation master plan, is what they say here. After they say they're going to make an adjustment or an update between now and the end of the year, they come back and finally, the last thing they say is that they actually don't intend on making any changes whatsoever. And looking for opportunities is not compliance with the law. I mean, if I'm ever pulled over by the great state of Michigan's finest for, I don't know, speeding, I'm not going to hand over my insurance and driver's license to the officer and say, you know, I'm going to leverage early opportunities to obey the speed limit next time, officer. I don't think that's going to work very well for me, and it should not work for the Navy when they report to Congress. They should at least be required to follow the law. All right, so where are we? Here we are, 2024 when I record this. This timeline goes all the way back to 2018. The schedule goes through to 2029, basically the entire decade of the 2020s. So what does the Navy do now? They don't have a drawing. They don't have a model. They don't have a land-based engineering site. But they did authorize, I have to laugh because it makes no fucking sense. They did authorize 3 more hulls to be built. So we're going to build the first 4 Constellation-class frigates of the eventual 10 that they want to build in Finnicotiri, despite having no 3D model complete for the superstructure. There's no hydrodynamic testing for the hull complete yet. Every major system footprint, whether it's electricity, water, or utilities, is not complete. And more importantly for the workers, there is no position for piping, ventilation, and where equipment's going to go. So the poor workers are, I'm sure, sitting in their shops, ready to go weld and fit pipes and install equipment, but they don't have the plans to do it because they haven't been finished yet. So the Navy's fiscal year budget, this is looking out at next year, is asking for money for 4 additional frigates to be built between 2025, or funded anyway, between 2025 and 2027, because that's what the schedule says should happen. The schedule that they wrote back in 2018 says, you know what, when 2025 comes around, we buy 4 more, right? Well, no. You finish the drawing. How about we draw let's draw the frigate first. How about we start with that? right? And so you can see that no matter what, they're hell bent and determined to spend $10 billion. That's going to happen. When and how many frigates we actually get, I have no idea. And I don't think Navy or Congress does either. The Navy doesn't know because of apparent incompetence. Congress doesn't know because they're being lied to. The shipyard is cashing checks and doing what they're told to do by the Navy, so I can't really blame them. The whole situation is comically mismanaged at a level of incompetence that is shocking to me, quite amazing. So I would like to leave you with this. This project began 6 years ago with funding of a concept design for 2 years, 16 months, but about 2 years. And they began spending billions of dollars for that. They awarded the contract in 2020 to Fincantieri, where money continued to flow for a functional design. That's 4 years now. And now for the last 2 years, they've been constructing, quote unquote, the Constellation-class frigate at a price tag of $7 billion spent to date. And they want money for 4 more. And this is what it looks like in 2024, folks. I present to you USS Constellation as it sits in the assembly building, waiting on a functional design, a 3D model, and a bunch of shipyard workers who would love to do something, but can't until they have approved technical documents to do their job. This piece of steel has taken 6 years to design and build and cost us $7 billion, and the Navy wants more money to fund 4 additional hulls when they can't even draw the first one. And I'll tell you this, when I found out about this, I sent an email from my business email to the media office of Fincantieri Marionette Marine asking for a visit. I will pay for my own travel to go and visit this shipyard for what I call a hard hat tour, where you get to walk the assembly building and speak to their PAOs or public affairs officers and any media people they have, but also their shipyard workers and their design office, not to distract them and take them away from their job, but just to help better understand from a shipyard point of view how this has fallen so far behind. At the rate that they're going, a 4% functional design increase year over year is not going to cut it. I don't think we're going to get our frigates this decade. At this rate, it's clearly going to be the 2030s at the earliest. Hell, Australia might get their submarines before we get our frigate at this rate. So this is what she looks like now. To be fair, whenever you start building a ship, they all look like this. My point is, it's been 6 years, and this is what we have after $7 billion. That is clearly unacceptable. And Congress has been lied to. The shipyard is doing what they're told. And the person in the middle managing this is the Navy. So, one, I hope I get that tour. I may not after this video, but I swear I'm not blaming the shipyard. I don't know where the blame lies. Maybe everybody has a little bit of it, right? But this has got to get fixed. And my bullseye is squarely on the U.S. Navy senior leadership. What the hell are they doing? All right. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching this so long. This kind of was a rant. And we'll see you next time. Have a great one. Bye.